Amelia Carter had never believed in fairy tales. Life as a nurse had taught her that reality was often far harsher than any storybook ending. Her days began before sunrise, rushing from patient to patient with a smile she forced through exhaustion, and ended long after the city lights had dimmed, when the rest of the world was already asleep. She lived in a modest apartment, caring for her widowed mother and younger brother who depended on her small income. Romance was a luxury she had long ago stopped dreaming about, something reserved for women who had time to dress up, laugh freely, and live without worry. So, when her best friend begged her to take her place on a blind date she no longer wanted to attend, Amelia laughed at the absurdity of it. She didn't own fancy dresses or designer handbags, her only pair of heels had been gathering dust in the closet for years. Yet something in her heart, perhaps curiosity, perhaps a whisper of fate, nudged her to say yes. That evening, after trading her scrubs for the simplest blue dress she could find, Amelia stepped nervously into the warm glow of an upscale restaurant. Her breath caught when her eyes landed on the man waiting at the table, a man with a sharp suit, but even sharper sadness in his gaze. She didn't know yet that he was Ethan Miles, a powerful CEO and single father, searching not for glamour but for someone real. And Amelia, without knowing it, was about to change his life forever. Ethan Miles had everything most men dreamed of: wealth, influence, and a name that commanded respect in every boardroom. Yet none of it filled the hollow silence that greeted him at night. Since losing his wife 3 years ago, he had poured himself into work, building walls of meetings and contracts to avoid the ache of loneliness. He agreed to this blind date only because his colleagues insisted he needed company, though he secretly dreaded another evening of forced small talk. But when Amelia sat down across from him, her presence shifted the air. She wasn't dressed like someone chasing status, and her nervous smile was nothing like the polished charm he was used to. Instead of asking about his money or his empire, she asked if he had eaten before the meeting, her eyes sincere with concern. Ethan was caught off guard. No one had asked him such a simple, human question in years. As the night went on, Amelia listened more than she spoke, nodding gently when he opened up about his daughter, Lily, and how much he feared failing her. Something about Amelia's quiet strength, her willingness to listen without judgment, melted the armor he had built. He found himself leaning forward, drawn to the way her compassion felt like warmth on a cold day. And Amelia, despite her reservations, felt her heart stir at the sight of this man whose power didn't shield him from pain. What began as a favor to a friend now felt like the start of something she couldn't quite name. Both of them, in their own silent ways, realized they were meeting someone who saw beyond appearances, and that was rare, precious, and perhaps life-changing. The following week, Ethan couldn't get Amelia out of his thoughts. For the first time in years, he found himself distracted in meetings, replaying her soft laughter and the way she had looked genuinely interested in his stories. He surprised himself by calling her, unsure if she would even answer. To his relief, Amelia's voice on the other end was warm, though tinged with hesitation. She wasn't used to men like him, she admitted, and feared their worlds were too different. Ethan didn't argue, he simply asked if she would join him and his daughter, Lily, for a simple afternoon in the park. Against her better judgment, Amelia agreed. That Sunday, she found herself holding Lily's small hand as they walked through the playground. The little girl clung to her instantly, laughing in a way that made Ethan's eyes soften with gratitude. Amelia didn't realize it then, but her natural kindness was weaving into the very fabric of their lives. Ethan watched in awe as his daughter, who had been shy and withdrawn since her mother's passing, blossomed in Amelia's presence. They fed ducks, shared ice cream, and for a brief moment, they felt like a family, something Ethan had been yearning for, and something Amelia never imagined she'd be part of. As the sun set, Ethan turned to her with a quiet sincerity that caught her off guard. "You don't have to pretend to be anyone else," he said softly. "Just being you is more than enough." Those words struck a chord deep in Amelia's heart, for no one had ever seen her that way before. And in that fleeting moment, something undeniable began to grow between them. Despite the growing bond, Amelia often reminded herself that she didn't belong in Ethan's world. He was a CEO, a man surrounded by wealth and polished sophistication, while she lived paycheck to paycheck, often skipping meals so her younger brother could eat. Yet, whenever she tried to pull away, Ethan and Lily seemed to pull her back in without even realizing it. One rainy evening, Amelia rushed from her shift at the hospital to check on Ethan's daughter, who had caught a cold. She found herself in their grand home, tucking Lily into bed, humming a lullaby her own mother used to sing. Ethan stood in the doorway, watching, his heart swelling with emotions he hadn't let himself feel in years. When Amelia turned and caught his gaze, she expected to see pity or gratitude. Instead, she saw admiration, pure and unwavering. "You have a way of bringing peace into my home," he whispered, almost as if speaking to himself. The weight of his words pressed against Amelia's chest, leaving her breathless. For the first time, she wondered if perhaps she wasn't intruding but was meant to be there. Still, doubts gnawed at her. Could a nurse from a humble background truly fit into the life of a millionaire CEO? The question lingered like a storm cloud in her heart, even as moments of warmth and belonging made it harder to walk away. Ethan, however, had no doubts. He knew that what mattered most wasn't wealth or status, but the rare, genuine kindness Amelia carried wherever she went. And slowly, Amelia began to realize that maybe he was right. The turning point came one late evening when Ethan invited Amelia to a charity gala. She resisted at first, afraid of being judged by the glittering crowd of high society, but Ethan reassured her gently, "Come as yourself. That's who I want them to meet." Dressed in a borrowed gown from her friend, Amelia entered the ballroom at his side, feeling out of place among the jewels and champagne glasses. Whispers trailed behind her. Curious stares from women who wondered who she was, and skeptical looks from men who expected Ethan to be with someone glamorous. Amelia's insecurities nearly consumed her until she noticed Lily waving proudly from the corner, as though saying, "You belong here with us." That gave Amelia courage. When a wealthy guest mocked her modest background, Amelia simply smiled and said, "I may not have much, but I know what it means to care for people when they have nothing." Her words, spoken without bitterness, silenced the room more effectively than any sharp reply. Ethan's chest tightened with pride. He reached for her hand, holding it tightly as if to tell the world she was his choice. Later that night, on the balcony under the soft glow of city lights, Ethan confessed what he had been holding back for weeks. "Amelia," he said, voice steady yet vulnerable, "I thought I needed someone perfect for this life. But I realized I need someone real. And that's you." Amelia's eyes filled with tears, not from doubt, but from the sudden realization that love had found her in the most unexpected way. For the first time in years, her heart dared to believe in forever. From that night onward, Amelia's life transformed in ways she could never have imagined, not because she was suddenly surrounded by wealth, but because she had found a place where she was truly seen. Ethan introduced her not as a charity case or a fleeting romance, but as the woman who had restored joy to both his and Lily's lives. Slowly, Amelia's fears of not belonging dissolved, replaced by the quiet confidence that kindness and authenticity could build bridges stronger than money ever could. She continued her work as a nurse, refusing to give up the calling that defined her, and Ethan supported her wholeheartedly, often telling his board of directors that the woman he loved worked harder than any CEO he knew. The greatest change, however, was in Lily. Once withdrawn and shy, she now ran through the halls with laughter, clinging to Amelia's hand and calling her "Mom" without hesitation. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Ethan wrapped his arm around Amelia and whispered, "You've given us back a family." Amelia leaned into him, her eyes glistening, realizing that love wasn't about finding perfection, it was about finding someone who saw your scars and stayed anyway. Their story wasn't a fairy tale of castles and crowns, but a reminder that even the most unexpected encounters can alter the course of a lifetime. A blind date she never wanted had led Amelia to a love she had once believed impossible, and in giving her heart, she discovered that hope, compassion, and courage could change not just one life, but two others forever.